Hey y'all, happy Wednesday. It is 18th of May, and I'm here, of course, with my favorite co-host, Mr. Mike Clifton, along with a special guest, CW Hawes. We're going to be talking mystery today. But before we get there, Mike, how was your weekend?
It's pretty good. Uh, Worked out in the yard a lot and um, enjoyed the weather. Did a lot of porch sitting and stress free living, I guess you might say.
Gotta love the
Uh,
country life.
yeah, yeah.
Well, mine was still hobbling around. It seems that when I fell in Kilgore, I actually sprained both my ankles. So one worse than the other. The other one's still not great, but I had to
Yeah.
hobble around on crutches, which made life really fun.
Uh,
So yeah, it's still kind of a couple different shades of yellow and purple, even 2 weeks later. So it turns out that I guess I tore some ligaments and tendons in the right ankle, which is my dominant ankle, which means I have to hobble around on my left one.
Well,
Which
like you said before, sometime it'd been better to have broken your ankle instead of doing straining the ligaments. Yeah.
yeah, it is because it's like I feel fine otherwise, but I feel like I'm being held captive because I can't do much. I have to like hobble around, and if I do too much, even like swimming in the pool or something, just kind of floating around to kind of keep strength and exercise and kind of build without putting pressure on my legs, my foot like just wants to kill me all night long.
Hmm.
It's brutal. So
Wow.
anyway, CW, how was your weekend?
well, I don't know. It's kind of the answer I give everybody. I'm retired, so every day is the weekend. I mean, there's, it's just sort of all blends together,
That's
Yeah.
not a bad
So
thing. It really isn't.
and it's all good. I mean, it's when you're retired, it's like you're a kid again, only you're an adult. So hey,
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
get to
What
can't
day?
sleep
beat it.
in. The commute's great. I
Yeah,
mean,
the commute's really good.
don't have to
Yeah.
worry about traffic. Don't have to worry about any of that stuff. It's
No,
all
no,
good.
no.
Yeah. Every day is a Saturday.
Every day is a Saturday. That's right. Every day is a Saturday.
Provided I can get my doggy to sleep in, yes, it is. She's what we
Yeah, well,
call a
the
forever
cat
toddler.
never, the cat doesn't know any of that, but it's so,
Well, today we're going to be talking mystery. Ooh.
yeah, it's mystery.
So, um, Mr. W and actually Mike and I were all in an anthology together, Beyond the Sea Stories from the Underground.
Yes.
And since then, I've actually left the group because I've had way too much going on my plate. But they've done some really cool things. Like they started doing instead of an anthology in one book, you guys are kind of doing it through books themselves. There's like an anthology, like one
Right.
person writes one book, one person writes the next one. How difficult is that?
Um, well, it's basically a series, a novel series, and it's just that instead of one person writing it, we have 9 people writing it. And so yes, it does take quite a bit of talking and coordinating.
I mean,
We have,
because some are planners, some are pantsers. I mean,
yeah,
how do you determine who
I
comes
don't,
in the
well,
lineup and
yeah, well, so everybody writes their own novel.
mhm.
Right.
So and so they have their basic story and their basic characters. They can borrow other characters that we've created if put in their story if they want. So one of my characters, Harry Thurgood, he shows up in Caleb's book, and he shows up in Cindy's book, and he's in Linda Pirtle's book, and then Jim Callan, he's using my character, the Reverend Ember Cole, in his book. So, and so we, make use of each other's characters, but we have to also talk with each other to make sure that we are being faithful to, the original creator's idea of what the character is like.
So you don't go against the character of the character.
Yeah, you don't want that. So, you want to have some consistency. Obviously, somebody else is going to be writing it, so it'll be a little bit different. But
Now, is your book a mystery?
well, yeah. As it, and that was just a fluke, actually. It turned out that all 9 of us decided we were going to write crime novels of some
Oh, are you
type,
serious?
and so it just worked out that way. So we just decided to name the series the Magnolia Bluff Crime Chronicles. And
So Magnolia Bluff is a very bad place to live. Is that what I'm hearing?
no, it's a beautiful place to live.
Where
You just
everybody
have
gets
to,
killed?
well, you just have to look behind you very often. So that's
Yeah. So are
but,
are there any?
People are just dying to move there. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
It's like midsummer,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah.
or
So CW, are there any parameters that you all have to follow in this consortium, this series?
well, you can't kill off somebody else's character.
Okay.
Without permission?
Yeah, well, without permission, right? And so you
Leave
can't
it to me
do
to
that.
find that loophole in there somewhere.
Right. Yeah, you can't do that. The books all have to basically take place in Magnolia Bluff or
Okay.
close by. And that's kind of basically about it. Like I said, we've all ended up writing crime novels. They're pretty much all amateur sleuths.
Sure.
I think Kelly Marshall does have a conservation officer as her main investigator. So that's
I
kind
have
of
the first 2 books, so I do have yours and Caleb's so far.
Ah, good. Thank you.
I think I have yours and Cindy's. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Cindy's is out too. I didn't miss that one.
Well,
So,
Cindy's isn't out yet. Hers
okay.
comes out next month.
Okay, I thought I've been following along with them. So that's not the only mysteries that you write, though, is it?
What's that?
That's not the only mysteries that you write, though.
Oh no. As a matter of fact, Magnolia Bluff, Death Wears a Crimson Hat is sort of a sideshow in a sense. My main series of mysteries is the Justinia Wright private investigator mysteries. And yeah.
Well, I've read several of your Justinia Wrights. I was curious as to how did you come across, or how did you develop your character Justinia Wright? Did you already have her in mind? Did you have an idea of somebody, maybe you've met a character or something that you somebody reminded you of that, or how did that come about? What was the evolution of her character?
Okay, well, good, thanks. That's I love talking about Tina. So I worked in the public library in Anoka County, Minnesota for 5 years. While there, the librarian of the branch that I was at loved mysteries and got me hooked on mysteries, particularly Nero Wolfe mysteries. And so one day I was reading an Ellery Queen magazine, and they were introducing a new sleuth, and her name was Athalea Good, and she was I don't know, a baker or something. And the editor was saying that he hoped this series would grow because there weren't very many female detectives. Now, this was just before, we had this whole slew of with Kinsey Mulhone and V.I. Warshawski and, that whole gang of women writers and women detectives hit the scene. This was just before that. So I got thinking about that story and what the editor said, and I said, well, Athalea comes from the Greek, means truth. So you have truth and good. I said, how about if I go Latin and English? So I got thinking about it, and I said, well, investigators are into justice, so I'll call her Justinia. And then I said, well, let's see, Athalea Good, Well, the investigator really ultimately needs to be right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how her name came about, Justinia Wright. Um, Initially, I kind of, at least physically, I kind of modeled her after my sister. Uh, and since then, she's evolved into her own person. But initially, it was my sister who kind of gave me the idea for at least her physical, how she looked.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then, as far as her persona, because I like Nero Wolfe, I decided I'd maybe make her like a female Nero Wolfe. So she's somewhat like Nero Wolfe, but not totally like Nero Wolfe because she does go out of the house. Um, but that's kind of how she came about. And then, as of course you write the books and the characters begin taking on a life, whole life
Mm-hmm.
of their own, and so she's evolved uh, from my original concept anyway.
When you write mysteries, you kind of gotta. I accidentally wrote one. I didn't realize it was a mystery until somebody read it and told me it was actual mystery. I didn't intend for it to be. Um, and it was, of course, over 5 books. It's a 5-book series, and there were
Ah,
technically 2 mysteries in it. And I didn't realize I did it. But it's like you kind of gotta give just enough where they think they have an idea of who it is, but it could be, multiple people. And so you kind of got to throw a little bit of red herrings in there, but, make it unpredictable enough that they're like, oh my gosh, I never would have thought it was that person.
well, yeah, that's the normal way you do it. Yes. um, I don't do it that way. I'm a pantser. I mean,
So am I.
I'm an ultra pantser. I do what H. Bedford Jones used to do. He's called the king of the pulps because he was so prolific. He'd have 4 typewriters going at once because if he got stuck on one story, he just slid over to another typewriter and continued typing.
Wow.
And that's where
So
computers, you can just click into a different folder.
yeah,
It's all good.
well, yeah, this was back in the 1920s.
Hmm.
So, um, but yeah, one computer I suppose is cheaper than 4 typewriters, huh? But anyway, but
Paper, ribbon, all
yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah, all that stuff. So, um, but anyway, and he said this in his book on writing that he just put the sheet of paper in the typewriter and started typing.
Mhm.
Period.
That's what I normally do.
Well, good. Yeah. So we're on the same
Yeah,
page.
I'm like
Yeah.
poster child pantser right here.
Yeah. So when I sit down to write a Justinia Wright mystery, usually I have some kind of initial scene that just pops into my head.
Hmm.
So I write it down, and I write everything longhand.
Oh.
I hate typing, so um, I write everything longhand, and uh, it's probably a tactile thing because I really like, I really like holding the pencil. I like the feel of the paper. I like how the ink or the lead flows on the page. It's just a tactile quirk with me, I guess.
I
But
see. If
anyway,
I did that, I wouldn't be able to read it. But that's
so
that's
well,
why I
yeah,
do it.
there is that issue too,
I'm like, what
but
did I put here?
yeah, right. Well, that's why I
Yeah.
print everything.
Mhm.
Right.
Um, so, but when I sit down, I just start writing. It's not often that I have any idea who did it. I kind of write like I read, so
Mhm.
it's a journey of discovery.
Yeah, like I said, I didn't even mean to write a mystery, and I did.
Yeah, well, that's yeah.
Yeah, I
So
don't. I never know how my stories are going to end. So.
yeah, well, I mean, with a mystery, it's kind of a set ending. The detective's going to solve the crime. So I mean, you don't have to think about that too much. I mean, there are the odd ones that are kind of open ended or whatever, but for the mystery genre, the real hardcore mystery readers, they expect a certain formula to be followed. So, and
But
because yeah, Mike, what were you going to say?
I was just going to ask you because I know we're all pantsers. Do you have when you sit down? Of course, you pantsers. You wait for the inspiration to hit you, and you go wherever it takes you. I mean, I get that, but do you have like a general outline, like an ending? Do you have a general idea of how you're going to end it, and everything in between is fair game, or how does that work with the way you write your mysteries?
Well, with mysteries, like I said, they are formulaic, so I know that in order for the mystery to be acceptable to mystery readers, the detective has to solve the case at the end. So that's a given. All right. As far as the first sentence that I write and the last sentence I write, well, no, I don't have anything planned out. I just start writing. And I'm a big believer in Ray Bradbury's dictum. You create your characters, you let them do their thing, and there's your story.
Mm-hmm.
So mysteries are supposed to be plot driven, but I don't write them that way. I write them character driven. And so I come up with, obviously I have the detective, I have Tina and her brother Harry, who's the Watson.
Mm-hmm.
And
there's the secretary in there too, isn't there?
Yeah, B is Harry's wife, and she.
Yeah, I like her though.
Yeah, B is cute. I like B. It's and so so I have that trio, and then there's Lieutenant Cal Swenson of the Minneapolis Homicide Department. And other than that, I mean, somebody has to come in to ask Tina to do something. Mm-hmm. So I then create that person, and then eventually somebody has to die. So then I have the body, and then I'm just.
Do they always have a body though?
Well, actually, in the very first book, Festival of Death, no, there is no. Well, the person that Tina's looking for does not die. So there are some deaths, but they're really off stage and really vague. But no, there's that one. There aren't any. But in Death Makes a House Call, for example, Tina doesn't want to take the doctor's case. So Harry says, well, we aren't busy. I'll take the case. And then lo and behold, what happens? Harry goes to meet the doctor to find out more about what his situation is, and the doctor's dead. And so
Tina has to help.
Yeah, then Tina has to help, see, because Harry's in kind of hot water there. So so she gets dragged into the whole thing. So basically, she's kind of lazy, she doesn't want to work. She'd rather paint or play the piano. So there I had the body. Now I had to figure out who did it. Well, I don't know, somewhere along the line, I was halfway through, 2/3 of the way through. I don't know. I finally decided who did it. And I, on a couple of these, I didn't know. But Jesus Never Wept, I was at least halfway through the book, and I had no idea who did this. And I was getting kind of nervous. And
like, talk to me.
Yeah. And I mentioned it to my sister, and she said, basically, well, what are you worried about? You always figure it out at some point. And you're right. I do. So
true. So you truly never saw the plot twist coming.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I probably shouldn't say this, but when people write reviews or whatever, and they say how these are expertly plotted and complicated and everything,
you're laughing your head off.
I'm sorry, but I do kind of laugh at that, because Well, I'm glad they come out that way.
Uh,
That's, I'm glad about that because
just the way you planned, right?
yeah,
It's
exactly.
just like sometimes being a speaker, they don't know that you've made a mistake. They don't know that you really had
Well,
no clue
right,
until you
right.
kind of
You
fake it till
know,
you make it. Eventually, somebody's going to figure out who killed him.
yeah, it's right. The musician who's playing the piece, if makes a fluff. Well, I was playing in a recorder consort in college, and the director said, if you make a fluff, don't worry about it because most everybody in the audience isn't going to know it.
Hmm.
Just keep going.
Mhm.
And so I think that kind of applies to anything.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
people think that we writers are kind of like magicians.
No, we kind of teeter that fine line between crazy and
Yeah,
sanity.
so there's a certain magic about what we do, and it does pay to kind of keep that myth going, but
Definitely.
so
well,
Now
CW,
yours
know
are
we're
kind
talking. Go ahead.
I know yours are kind of the Justinia rights are kind of a little bit more short than your normal books, correct?
well, I write short books, period.
Okay.
I
I know they're
I
quick reads. That's why.
well, yeah, number one, I like short books as a reader.
Hmm.
I grew up reading short, stories, and the novels back then in the 50s were, short.
Yeah.
They were like 40,000 words or whatever, and the publishers had to, by the time the 60s hit, the publishers were slapping two novels in the ace doubles or whatever, two novels in a book just so they can make money off of them. It's so I grew up with short books and I like short fiction. So my novels usually aren't more than, I don't know, 50, maybe 55,000, maybe.
More than a novella. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, technically a novella ends at about 40,000 words.
Yep. Yep.
And I mean, there are a couple Justinia rights which don't quite make 50,000, and I don't worry too much about that because the book just needs to be long enough to cover the subject, and that's it. And
Right.
I hate when it's padded, quite honestly. And when you're reading a book and it's padded because they don't need this to further the story.
Hmm.
That's a whole separate talk for a different.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, Robert
Yes,
Jordan's Wheel of Time, perfect example of filler.
Too much
Well,
information.
yeah, oh yeah. Well, I know you write more than, although our episode is about mystery. I know you're a multi-genre author, CW.
Yes.
You also write. I've also read some of your books. That man, they kind of run the gamut. It's voodoo, horror, science fiction.
Apocalyptic.
Post-apocalyptic. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that as well? That we've talked about your mystery writing. What about your other genres?
Yeah. Well, I have a post-apocalyptic series. It's 7 books and it's on pause. Maybe someday I'll go back and finish it. But right now it's on pause. It's at a good point to end, but I could pick it up again. And I like the post-apocalyptic genre, particularly cozy catastrophes.
Cozy catastrophes?
Yes, cozy catastrophes.
I like that.
They were very popular in England in the 50s. And they're kind of utopian in feel. You have a group of people who eventually come together after the big disaster, and they're trying to rebuild the world as a better place. Mm-hmm. Now, how more utopian can you get than that, huh? So, and I didn't know this when I started writing the Rocheport saga. I didn't know there was such a thing as cozy catastrophe. I did know that I liked the novel Earth Abides. And I came to learn later that Earth Abides is a cozy catastrophe. And the Day of the Triffids, is also a cozy catastrophe. So we don't normally think of it that way, but it really is, because the main group of characters is trying to build a better world.
Mm-hmm.
So I really like that, and so I just sort of fell into it. But I said, hey, this fits. So
You
I
know,
do
I
that.
I actually still have that book, Earth Abides. I read it when I was in college.
Yeah,
I still have that paperback. One of the few I've kept and haven't turned into a used bookstore.
yeah, yeah.
That was an
It's
awesome
a good
novel.
book. Yeah,
It
it
is.
is. It's a very good book. Very good. So I write that. I write the Pierce Mastin Paranormal
Yeah.
Investigation series. That's
Those are
uh
unique. I've actually reviewed a couple of those on my blog.
so
The one about the Zubambies.
yes, the Zuvembis. Yes,
Yeah,
Van Dyne's Zuvembis.
yep,
Yes.
that's the one.
Yes.
Um, Pierce Mastin is kind of a blend of Kolchak, the Night Stalker, the X Files, and the Cthulhu mythos. Um,
And
I
people
like
wonder where my brain goes half the time.
I like Lovecraft's Cthulhu mythos, and just one day it just hit me. Geez, that would kind of fit in if there was some sort of secret government agency that was trying to knock off these monsters or whatever, prevent them from taking over the earth. So that's where Pierce Mastin came from, and I have a lot of fun writing those. They're and great fun. I also have some alternative history. I started a series with Lady Drew Drummond, who's an investigative reporter, and I just have 2 books in there, and I don't know that I'll ever go back to that. That's kind of one of those, I did it and that's it, but
Scratch
who
that
knows?
itch.
Yeah,
Sometimes
I
it's
scratched that itch. That's right. Yeah.
sometimes it's just like a challenge. Like, can I do
Yeah.
this?
Yeah. Well,
You
I
know?
was interested in diesel punk at the time, or deco punk, and I've kind of moved off from there. Um, but I think they're okay books, and Rand Hart and the Pajama Putsch is actually based on a real historical event. The real Pajama Putsch was in Brazil, and so I just used that and as a basis for this alternative history decopunk book, and so it was a lot of fun.
Interesting. Well, we have just a few minutes left. So, how can people find more about you online?
Well, it's probably the best place to go would be the website, which
Which
is
is
www.cwhawes, Hawes is Hawes,
mhm.
cwhawes.com. And you can go to the page, you'll see have my blog there. And then over on the left, you can click my books, and that'll take you to all my books. You can click about the author. That'll tell you a little bit about me. Yes, there's the website. And so that's probably the best place. I am also on Twitter.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm also on Facebook.
Now, how are you listed on Twitter? Because I was trying to find you.
Twitter, it's at CW_Hawes.
That's why I couldn't find you.
So that's where I am at Twitter.
Okay.
And Facebook, I'm at, my page is under CW Hawes, and my profile's under Christopher Hawes.
Awesome. Well,
So
thank you so much. You've given us a lot to think about. So maybe try those listening, try your hand at writing a mystery and see what happens. It gets
great
kind of
fun.
all kinds of fun. Yeah, I like them. Being a pantser as well. Next week, we're going to have one of my favorite type of weeks. It's book reviews. We haven't done it for a few months, so I'm pretty excited to get back to it. I know I have a really good one to talk about. I don't know about you, Mike, but we enjoy those because we get to share some of the stories that we've enjoyed with other people. So we'll see you here next time, same place, next Wednesday, 1 o'clock. We'll see you then.